Here is my official NFL playoff bracket, and now I know what you're thinking.
MC, what are you even talking about? Why are you watching football? You are a basketball guy, stick to NBA, don't watch NFL.
First of all, my opinion is that NBA has kind of gone down a little bit, where I try to watch something else and I got into football. I've been getting into football since 2 years ago, and I really got into it this season. Maybe last season, probably at the end of the last season, but this season I really got into it, and it's very enjoyable. There's a lot of drama in it. There's just such fascinating clips to watch of it, and my team, as you can notice, the Buffalo Bills are doing very, very well, and we'll get to that when we discuss my predictions. So let's talk about it. 14 teams, 2 bye teams, and 6 teams in each conference playing in the wild card. So let's talk about the wild card first. So let's talk about the AFC, because I think the AFC is a little bit easier to tell because there's some pretty obvious decisions to make here. Then we get to the NFC later, and that's where things get pretty difficult. So let's start off with the AFC. Starting off with the first game of the playoffs, the Houston Texans versus the Los Angeles Chargers. And now, this is a decision where I actually went back on, because my original decision was the Los Angeles Chargers. They got a new coach. I like their team. I like Justin Herbert a lot as a quarterback, and that team has a decent core as a whole. However, I think the Texans have the experience. I like what I saw from the last game of the season. I know it's the Titans, but I saw what I liked from the last game of the season. The Texans have shown themselves to be pretty good at times. They're obviously dealing with a lot of injuries as a whole. But ultimately, I think my decision is going to go to the Houston Texans, because I think the home field advantage is where I got to split hairs in. I think the Chargers could potentially win this game. I would not be surprised at all. Again, it's a 4-5 matchup, so it's very difficult to decide. The Chargers obviously have a better record than the Texans. The Texans have home field because of divisional rules. So this is a tough decision to make, but I think I'm going to stick to my loyal decision and pick the Houston Texans. I actually did a bracket with some other friends of mine, and I'm going to stick to it. So I got the Houston Texans winning the series or game. It's not a playoff series. It's just a game. Wild card game. Yeah, go with that. The next game we're going to talk about is the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens. Now, hear me out. The odds are favoring Baltimore a lot on these betting apps. They're favoring them a lot. I think they're a plus. The Steelers are plus 410 underdog to win this game. Now, for me personally, I think it should be a lot closer. And here's why I say this. The Steelers obviously have not been playing well the past 4 games. Terrible offense. Their defense has slipped a bit. But injuries obviously hit them when they played the Ravens their last time. However, they're the Pittsburgh Steelers. These guys know the Baltimore Ravens. These guys are divisional rivals. So they know each other. They play each other twice per year before the playoffs, not excluding playoffs. So this is their 3rd time matching up. The series is tied 2-2. Now, Xavier Flowers is out for the Baltimore Ravens. Is that his name? Zay Flowers. I said Xavier. Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is out for the Baltimore Ravens. So we have to take that into consideration. That's their main target that they go to. That's where their main target, where Lamar Jackson goes to. But again, the Steelers have been mediocre offensively. The Ravens have been one of the best offensive teams. The Ravens defense has been stepping it up the past few games. The Ravens have roughly 9 Pro Bowlers, where the Steelers have like 3, I think. I can't remember how many the Pittsburgh Steelers have. But ultimately, I think I'm going to lean to the Ravens. I like what I saw from them the past few games before the playoffs have started. I do not like what the Steelers have gone with, but it's going to be a lot closer than people say it is. Now, the final game got my team, yours truly, against the Denver Broncos. And I think you guys already know what my decision is going to be. However, I do like this Denver Broncos core. I think they have a very bright future. I like what I saw from them. I know they lost a few games against the Bengals. They lost to. That was a very tough game. I think they should have won that game, but that was very tough. But they obviously blew out the Chiefs, 3rd stringer Chiefs. And I like what they're going, dude. They're a very great defensive rushing team. However, The Bills are arguably a top 3 offensive team this season. They have quite arguably the league MVP on their team, and they have a great supporting cast. I know they don't have a guy like Stephon Diggs or Gabe Davis like the media says all over ESPN and Fox and all that. However, they've been playing very consistent football throughout the entire year. Their record is a lot better than what they say. I know they're 13-4, but they should have been 14-3. They barely lost against the Rams. Like earlier games of the season, there were early games, injuries happen. The Bills are coming back being fully healthy as a whole. So I do like the Broncos. I think the Broncos are up and coming though. However, I think my decision is going to be the Bills, especially since it's in Buffalo. They went undefeated at home. I know their home schedule was relatively easy this year. Their toughest matchup was the Kansas City Chiefs. But again, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. But they had a pretty easy home schedule, but they still went undefeated at home, just like the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's take that into consideration. Let's take into consideration that they have the more playoff experience on their roster. The Broncos have a top 3 coach of the year candidate, and that's a really up and coming team. I like how they're looking. I like how the Patriots are looking. I know it's the Patriots. It's crazy I'm saying the Patriots because we're in the same division, but I just like Drake May. I think he's a great quarterback. I just think that as a whole. So I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills. I just think they have a better constructed roster for the playoffs. Now let's get into the NFC, and this is where things get pretty difficult. Let's get into the easiest matchup I can say, which is the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Green Bay Packers. This is not an easy decision still. I think these two teams are still very great teams. However, I think the defense leans towards what the Philadelphia Eagles have been doing. They have the Offensive Player of the Year. They have a top 3 league MVP candidate in Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts is coming back. They have a great supporting cast around them. You know, their defense has been insane all year. Where with the Packers, I mean, they've shown some inconsistencies throughout the entire year. I mean, they've shown that they can be a deep playoff run team throughout the entire NFL season, but they've also shown some inconsistencies, like how they lost to the Bears the final game. I know they're trying to rest their guys, but however, you wanted to avoid that matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles. You wanted that matchup against the Rams. You should have won that game, but something like that. They barely beat the Bears the last time. I remember they matched up with each other. You know, they didn't beat the Lions. I think their losses came from their division, where, you know, they've had some very close L's, but they've also shown some that they're pretty good, but they're also showing that they're super inconsistent, which I can't really trust the Packers, man. And I am going to go with Philadelphia. I could care less about the Packers as a whole. I think they're fine. I know a lot of people love them, but I think they're just fine. I like the Lions more in the division. I like what the Bears are going to do in the future. The Packers are cool, but they're always going to be that number 1 Glazer team because they have the most championships in NFL history. We get it as a whole, but I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's get into the next matchup, which is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Commanders, and this is very tough. This one is very tough. There was an earlier matchup this year where obviously it was Jaden Daniels' first game, but the Bucs pretty much clamped them up. Not really, they scored 20 points, but I think they were in garbage time. I can't remember. I think it was garbage time, but that matchup says a sign. Baker Mayfield has completely revived his career. The Bucs have been that one team where if I'm in the NFC, I am kind of worried about matching them and a certain other team. I'm very worried about that because this team has beaten both the Lions and the Philadelphia Eagles on the road. So that shows obviously they're a better road team than a home team. But the Commanders also beat the Eagles. But again, Jalen Hurts got injured in the second quarter, so who knows what really happens when they're fully healthy. But the Commanders kind of had control with that game pretty much the entire way through. So it's tough to decide which is going to happen. So my gut was leaning towards Tampa Bay, but this can go either way. 3-6 matchup can go either way. But I'm leaning towards Tampa Bay because I like what I've seen from them with them matching up against the two top crown teams in the NFC. Then let's get into my final pick, which the Rams are going to be taking on the Minnesota Vikings. And my decision would have been easily Minnesota if I didn't see what I saw from them in their final games against the Detroit Lions. Sam Darnold is a big wild card. Yeah, he's been very great this season. He's easily a Pro Bowler. No debate about that. However, it's still Sam Darnold. He's still showing inconsistencies that we've seen before this season in the past with the Jets, where it's been also showing with the last game. So who knows what type of player we're going to get. Also, the Rams have shown they have that championship DNA still. Again, they beat the Bills. They beat the Cardinals. They beat the Vikings. Earlier this year, they beat the Vikings earlier. But they've also shown that they're bad. I mean, injuries obviously hurt them with losing to the Packers, losing to the Eagles, like losing to teams like that. Losing to, they rested their guys against the Seahawks. But, they've been on a kind of a hot streak to end the season off. Where Minnesota, outside of that last game versus Detroit, they've obviously they're still 14-3. However, I think they're kind of fraudulent. I don't really trust the Vikings. I really don't. Where to the Rams, they have that DNA. They have that championship DNA. They're on the right step to end the season off. And look at them now. They got the 4th seed. They clinched their division. And now they match up with arguably one of the tougher teams in the NFC. But Minnesota is just an on-paper team. They've obviously been very close wins against other teams. And no one's taking that into consideration to where they rank in the power rankings. I personally did not have them in the same tier as the Lions or the Eagles or even the Bills and the Chiefs. I have the Ravens above them as personally for me. But I don't know, man. I think I'm going to go with the Rams. I know this can go either way. I could look like a fool come Monday night. I could look like such a fool by picking the Rams over the Vikings. But again, I don't hate the Vikings. I don't mind them. I don't mind that. I like what I've seen from Sam Darnold this year. I'm glad he's getting a redemption arc. He's going to get paid a lot of money this offseason. Kevin O'Connell, in my opinion, is probably coach of the year. It's either him or Dan Campbell. It's very close between those two. But again, when it comes to facing these contending teams, I'm very worried about this team. They lost to the Lions twice this season. Once when they were heavily injured. Second time, it was early in the season in Minnesota. They lost to the Rams, like I said earlier. So it can go either way. I'm going to go with the Rams this game. Now, we got the divisional games. So let's start off with the NFC because there's one specific AFC matchup we're going to talk about last. So let's talk about the NFC first. So let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is tough. This is very tough. But I lean towards Philly. I like what I've seen from them defensively. They have the experience as well. I think they're better talented-wise. I think they're better coaching-wise. Baker Mayfield is very good. Don't get me wrong. He's very good. He should have been Pro Bowl. I think he got completely snubbed. He should have been Pro Bowl. But I don't know how they vote for these things. But yeah, he got snubbed. And I'm going to go with Philly. I'm going with Philly. I like what I've seen from them defensively. They're just that team where it's like they're still they're inconsistent as well. Like what we saw from them last season in the playoffs where they just got wiped against Tampa Bay. But I think it's into Philly this time around. Second time, I think the roster's just a lot better this time around. And Jalen Hurts is coming back. I'm going with Philly. And then the next game we got is the Lions versus the Rams. And come on, dude. Come on. The Rams, don't get me wrong. Do not get me wrong. They have that DNA. They kept it very close with the Lions. The last 2 times they've matched up in Detroit. However, the Lions are peaking. They're getting their guys back. Even Montgomery's coming back. Jahmyr Gibbs just cooked. The last time, I mean, no, not the last time, last game. You know, I've just liked what I'm seeing from the Lions to end the season, where I think I'm still going with Detroit. It's going to be close. Again, it's going to be a very close game like it was in last year's wild card, like it was to open Sunday Night Football this season. It's going to be very close, but I'm also going to pick Detroit. Now, AFC, get the easy one out of the way. The Chiefs versus the Texans. I'm going with Kansas City. This is not even close. I think this is the easiest decision I've made all bracket. I know the Chiefs have been inconsistent, where they've been a mediocre 15-2 team. I think Detroit is a lot better on paper with how they've been able to win their games with the competition they've played. I just think Detroit is the better 15-2 team, but the Chiefs are still the back-to-back defending champs. They still have Patrick Mahomes. They still have their defense line. That's all they need. That's all they need, man. And they're the first seed again, unfortunately. We're living at that reality that they're the first seed again. And here they are, going back to the AFC Championship. Now, the final game is the game of the week for sure, of that weekend. The Bills versus the Ravens. This is what Twitter wants. This is what it ends to, man. It's crazy that we're going to get this matchup, and these two are the front runners for league MVP. And it's in Buffalo. But again, we have to factor in week 4 matchup where the Ravens completely destroyed the Buffalo Bills. Like, completely dominated. Mind you, it was Derrick Henry that dominated the Buffalo Bills. It was not Lamar Jackson that dominated the Buffalo Bills. I'm tired of people saying Lamar just outplayed Josh Allen. It was the defense that outplayed Josh Allen. And Lamar outplayed the Bills' defense, not Lamar outplayed Josh Allen. It's completely different, bro. That's not how football works. It's not like basketball where there's two-way players like that, man. It doesn't really work like that. So, it's tough. However, the Bills were also missing a couple of key players that matched up against Baltimore. And when we take into that factor of them missing their defenders the past few weeks, where they've been obviously a top defensive team, and they've been one of the best offensive teams this season as a whole. But the Ravens obviously have the factor of getting their guys separations, like where these guys get open super easily. And obviously they have one of the best players in the league and arguably another league MVP candidate in Lamar Jackson, who debatably could win it as well. And this is very, very close. This is really, really close. So let's picture this right now. So it's in Buffalo. This game will be in Buffalo. Let's just assume it's going to be a Sunday night game. And we'll just assume it's going to be very cold and it's going to snow a lot. Obviously, what's going to factor into is being adapt to playing in the cold weather or /snow. So the throwing game is going to be completely out of the books. And the running game is going to be the big thing. This is very tough. This is a super tough decision to make. Very tough. Derrick Henry has gotten his way with Buffalo so many times. It's actually insane. He's completely dominated us in the past, even this season as well. So he's had over 200 yards against us. It was something insane. He had an insane stat against us. Lamar Jackson, obviously, he has the reputation of not playing well in the playoffs. The last time we matched up against the Ravens in the playoffs, he had one of his worst games ever. So I don't know what kind of version of Lamar we're going to get better. I think we're going to get a better version of Lamar, but it's close as well. It's very close. This is very tough. I do have a decision, though. I do have a final decision. Again, I could be wrong. I'm so glad we're going to get this matchup. I'm super happy we're going to get this matchup. It can go either way. But I think it's time. Buffalo gets this done in Buffalo. I think we do. I genuinely think we do. I think it's the factor of them being used to playing in this inclement weather, in this climax. I don't think other teams are going to be used to that. I don't know if Baltimore is going to be ready for that. I know they are it's kind of cold there in Baltimore as well, but let's just assume it's going to be cold. The running game is going to be a big deal. The defense has to step it up against them because, Yeah, I get the game against the 49ers was a blowout, but Christian McCaffrey was getting his way every single time against us. Mind you, we're missing a couple of key players, but the running game is that's where it's gonna be tough against us. So, but I think the adjustments are there. We've heard some good things. I like what I've seen from this team. I know that argument what I'm just said can lead towards the Ravens' favor, but the experience of playing in this kind of inclement weather, the experience of Josh Allen being one of the best playoff performers in this specific league. I know we have not had that much success, but that's due to other circumstances other than Josh Allen. That's due to teams not playing Josh Allen out of the field. I think the Ravens are one of those teams that do not drain the clock like that. They try to score as quickly as possible. They're not like the Kansas City Chiefs where they use a lot of time and they try to take advantage of not having Josh Allen on the floor, not having our offense on the floor. So with that decision, I'm going to go with the Bills, but that can be something else. So let's talk about the championship games now. So here we are. This is what we anticipate. Who is going to make it to Super Bowl this year? We'll start with the NFC. So we got the Lions versus the Eagles. Again, this is going to be a great matchup. Another great matchup. So Lions versus Eagles. Lions are the number one offensive team in the league. The Eagles are, I think, the number one defense. I can't remember. I think they are top 3 defensively. This is going to come down to coaching. It's going to come down to quarterback play. It's going to come down to a lot of stuff, even defense. So defense, obviously, Philly wins that battle. But offensively, the Detroit's not a slouch defensively. Let's get that wrong. Detroit's not a slouch defensively. I know they're missing a lot of players, but they're still not a slouch defensively. They will clamp you up. I've seen that from multiple other games. But again, it's going to be close. Offensively, Detroit's going to get their way. That's going to get their way. I know Jared Goff, he's had multiple times this year where he's not played his best game, but they still win. Comeback win against the Houston Texans. He had two picks against the Vikings. They still won. I think the Eagles are still a better team than the Vikings, but it's close. But I do think it's Detroit's year. I think Detroit gets to the Super Bowl after a bounce back from what happened last year where they lost in the NFC Championship against the 49ers. I think they don't blow a lead this time around. I think it's Philly that blows the lead this time around. I think Detroit makes their first Super Bowl in franchise history, and I'm so excited for them. That's actually going to be such a great story if they make it to the Super Bowl and win it, potentially. Now, the AFC, the matchup that everybody wants, the matchup that the media is just going to hype up all playoffs if this actually happens. Bills versus Chiefs. Mahomes is 3-0 against the Bills in the playoffs. Let's just factor that. The Chiefs are 3-0 against the Bills in the playoffs. This will be an Arrowhead this time around. This is going to be very close. Already, this is going to be super close. Regular season wise, the Bills have had their number. I think the Bills have been the better team in regular season. I know the Chiefs are 15-2, but obviously matchup wise, the Bills completely dominated the Chiefs that one specific game. The Chiefs' offensive line has been mediocre this season. Their offense as a whole has been mediocre this season. It's been a setback. Defensively, they've been very good. Don't get me wrong. I think their defense has stepped it up the past few games, minus that game against the Broncos, but that game does not really count at all. So we're going to assume that they're still 16-1. But again, it's still the Kansas City Chiefs. It does not really matter, dude. It does not really matter. They're going to just adjust in the playoffs. However, going three-peating as a whole is very difficult in sports. The last three-peat we've had, I think, in professional sports was the 2000 Lakers. The Patriots have failed to go three-peat. The Lakers in 2008, 2010 failed to three-peat. The Heat failed to three-peat. The Warriors failed to three-peat. We have not had a three-peat since then. The Chiefs potentially could three-peat. Meanwhile, Buffalo on the other side, where they've been the one team in the playoffs, maybe outside of Baltimore, but I don't really see it with Baltimore, they've been one team that has been a thorn to the Chiefs all playoffs, where all their games have been very close to the Chiefs in the playoffs. And obviously, we got to factor in the 2021 AFC divisional game where they changed up the overtime rules because of how flawed it was. I was so annoyed by it with how the Chiefs were able to win the coin toss and got the ball and scored like that without the Bills getting the ball in the overtime. That was some cheese as a whole, and that's what made the fact that the Chiefs winning that game and obviously losing in the AFC Championship. Where towards that, if that wasn't a thing, I think the Bills get it done. Let's be real, I think the Bills get it done. But again, the Chiefs know how to drain clock. They know what to do in these scenarios. They know how to drain clock super well. It's tough. But the Bills obviously know the Chiefs very well. We've seen them multiple times in the playoffs. We've seen them multiple times in the regular season. We've seen them every single season in the regular season since 2020. We're going to see them again next year and the year after that, because next year we're both the number 1 seed teams for each division, and the next season we play the AFC West in Buffalo, but this is going to be an Arrowhead. But OT rules being different this year. The Bills, with how they're able to handle with the Chiefs, even them losing their games, I think it's Buffalo's time. I think we get it done, man. I think we do. I really do believe in this team this season. Last season, there were some inconsistencies to where Josh Allen's play throughout the season. The defense been slipping a bit, but this season, Josh Allen's been very great this season. I know his numbers have been a little bit lower, but 6 interceptions, 8 fumbles, insane stats. I know he had 28 passing touchdowns, but he sat out a lot of fourth quarters. He sat out the final game against the Patriots. But you know, insane numbers. Defensively, we're getting our defenders back. I like what we have in the wide receiver, where we don't have a main target in Stephon Diggs, so the Chiefs can't game that. We have multiple targets that won't have big egos this time around. The defense will obviously be there. Hopefully our special team will be there, but we got to go with Buffalo, man. I think they get it done at Arrowhead. They're capable of winning an Arrowhead. They are. People say that they suck in the playoffs. They don't suck in the playoffs. It's just the Chiefs are the better team this time around, but I don't think it. I do not think it this time around. I really don't think so. I think what's going to bite them in the back, it was their luck. What's their luck from winning games was how they have not scored 30 all season, and their inconsistencies with both sides of the field. I know they are the back-to-back champs. People are going to say they're the back-to-back champs and they have Patrick Mahomes, and simple argument as that. But those factors of what specifically happened this season, not last season. Last season was last season. The year before was the year before. This specific season, if they lost more games, maybe I could say the Chiefs maybe know how to figure it out to get it done this time around. But the factor of them getting so lucky, multiple games throughout the entire season. I can mention it against the Bengals, against the Ravens, against the Chargers, against the Broncos, against the Raiders, so many teams. The Panthers, man. The Buccaneers, so many teams. It's crazy. But I do think it's time that Buffalo gets it done and then get to the Super Bowl for the first time since 1998. Since the four-piece Super Bowl games where we didn't win a Super Bowl, but they get to it this time around. Now, the matchup that I personally really want, and I know a lot of people really want to see as well, the Bills versus the Lions. Who will be the top of the crown? Who will be the Super Bowl champion? And we get a rematch of what happened earlier in the season. Now, I know both teams are going to bring it all. I know they're going to do it and bring their best this game. This is tough, dude, but I do have a decision. Lions are really good offensively. Very good offensive, very good running, very good throwing game. So many good things with that team, coaching wise, offensive, like so many good things with that team. The Bills, one of the best offensive teams as well, probably the second and the third best in the league. A very good defensive team as well. Where we split hairs is course. the Lions might have a more talented offensive core. They have Jared Goff, Mark Gibbs, St. Brown, David Montgomery. There's so many good guys on that team. Bills are lacking that superstar factor with the catchers, with missing Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. I mean, we have Amari Cooper, we have Khalil Shakir, we have James Cook. I mean, we have Dalton Kincaid, we have Dawson Knox, we have Keon Coleman. Not really the best names out there, but still good receivers that were able to still do their jobs well. Plus, they have, in my personal opinion, the league MVP this season. Which leads to that factor of why I'm taking the Bills. I'm taking the Buffalo Bills to get it done. And I like the Lions. I think they're my favorite team in the NFC. I think they are. I think they're going to be there in the future. Maybe in like 2 or 3 years, we'll see how Jared Goff plays the next few years. And that also factors in. Jared Goff is a very big wild card as well. I know he's been in the Super Bowl before but lost to the Patriots. But again, it's very close. It's very close. That game against them, the Bills and the Lions, showed some big factors about how the Bills can easily get through them, where they were able to just 14-0 them in the first quarter, and then the Lions had to trail back. And yeah, they got back into the game, but the Bills kept scoring afterwards. That I know the onside kick happened. I know people are going to mention the onside kick happened with 12 minutes left, but however, the Bills were able to score. They were still able to score after that. It's not like the Bills were slacking after that. There's not like that. It was really not like that. Okay, Amari Cooper did not have a target all game, and the Bills still won. So I don't know. I don't know what to say, man. I really don't know what to say. I think it's time. I think this is what's gonna happen. I would love to be right. I'll be upset if I'm wrong. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm wrong. I'm always wrong with these predictions, but this is fun. This is very fun. I hope to be right about this, but the Bills will be the 2025 Super Bowl champions. I can't remember what number Super Bowl it is, but 59, 58, 57, don't know. Not 53, not 54, not 55, not 56. 59, Super Bowl 59 champions. We were raising that trophy in New Orleans, man. And I will go absolutely berserk if we win the Super Bowl. So, yeah, go Bills. And that's my prediction, y'all. See you guys in the next video. Take care, and we out.